You see a red octagon on the road and you stop. You don't read it, you don't think about it, your body just responds instantly to a shape and a color combination invented less than a century ago. Now, picture a symbol doing the exact same thing, except it's not 100 years old, it's 40,000 years old, painted in mineral pigment on a cave wall by firelight, and it was designed to do something just as urgent as making you stop your car. You've probably been taught that the first art humans ever made was self-expression, a creative impulse, beauty for beauty's sake, scratched onto stone by people finally sophisticated enough to feel something and need to show it. That explanation is almost certainly wrong. And what the evidence actually points to is stranger, more practical, and far more consequential than decoration ever could be. In 2019, a team led by archaeologist Maxime Aubert used uranium series dating on a cave wall in Sulawesi, Indonesia, and returned a number that stunned the field, at least 44,000 years old. But the age wasn't even the strangest part. The painting depicted something no one expected from that period at all, a coordinated hunting scene, small human-animal hybrid figures armed with spears and ropes surrounding wild buffalo and pigs.
This wasn't a single image. It was a narrative, a sequence of events laid out in order, meant to be read left to right the way you'd read a comic strip. Think about it. Someone needed to communicate a hunting strategy so precisely, so reliably, that they encoded it in paint rather than trusting it to memory alone. But if this was really about survival information, you'd expect it to be exclusive to Homo sapiens, the species famous for symbolic thinking. It isn't. In 2012, physicist Alistair Pike used uranium-thorium dating on red disc paintings inside El Castillo cave in Spain and got a result that upended decades of assumptions. The paintings were at least 64,000 years old. Modern humans hadn't even arrived in Europe yet. The only species capable of making that art was Neanderthal. Strange, isn't it? For over a century, Neanderthals were treated as the less sophisticated cousin, incapable of symbolic thought. Pike's dating suggested they were marking caves with meaningful symbols 20,000 years before your ancestors ever set foot on the continent. So if it wasn't uniquely human self-expression, and it existed in two separate hominin species independently, what was it actually for? This is where the story gets genuinely strange. Paleoanthropologist Genevieve von Petzinger spent years cataloging thousands of cave art sites across Europe, and she noticed something that shouldn't have been possible if this was just individual creative expression. The same 32 geometric signs kept appearing. Not similar signs, the same ones. Dots, crosshatches, spirals, specific angular marks. Repeated across caves separated by thousands of miles and tens of thousands of years.
If cave art were personal expression, you'd expect endless variation, the way handwriting or doodles vary wildly from person to person. Instead, von Petzinger found a consistent, repeated visual vocabulary used by unrelated groups who likely never met each other across a span of time longer than all of recorded history combined. That's not art in the sense you understand the word. That's a code. A shared symbol system, stable enough and important enough to be taught, copied, and preserved across enormous stretches of time and distance. And what were these symbols actually encoding? Researcher R. Dale Guthrie, who spent decades analyzing thousands of Paleolithic images, argued that a huge proportion of cave art wasn't depicting mythology or spiritual visions at all. It was depicting animal behavior with startling ecological precision. Guthrie identified specific postures, seasonal coat patterns, mating behaviors, and herd movements rendered with an accuracy that only someone who had spent a lifetime tracking these animals could produce. In other words, cave walls may have functioned as an ancient field guide, a visual database of exactly which animals were dangerous, which were vulnerable, which season they migrated, and how they moved when threatened. Information that could mean the difference between a successful hunt and a fatal one, preserved permanently on stone instead of relying on fragile human memory passed imperfectly from person to person.
Archaeologist David Lewis Williams has argued that some of this imagery likely emerged from altered states of consciousness, trance-like visions experienced by early shamans. But even in his framework, the act of painting wasn't decoration, it was documentation. A way of fixing something significant, something the group needed to remember or transmit onto a surface that would outlast the person who made it. Somehow, that's comforting. Long before writing, before permanent settlements, before agriculture, Your ancestors had already solved one of the hardest problems any species faces. How do you preserve knowledge longer than a single lifetime? The answer wasn't language alone, because spoken words vanish the moment they're finished. The answer was a wall, a surface that could hold information still, exactly the same, for the next person, and the person after that, and the person 40,000 years later staring at it in a cave with a flashlight instead of a torch.
So what does that mean for you? Every warning label you've ever glanced at without reading the words, every road sign you understand instantly through shape and color alone, every children's picture book teaching a toddler what's safe to touch and what isn't, you are still using the exact same cognitive tool your ancestors built on cave walls. Encode the critical information visually, make it stable, make it teachable, let it outlive you. Knowing this changes something. Cave art was never the decorative afterthought of a species finally comfortable enough to get artistic. It was one of the load-bearing technologies that let information survive longer than any single human could. It came before farming, before cities, possibly before full language as you know it. And it may have existed in more than one human species at once, independently arriving at the same conclusion. You know why you see a red octagon on the road and you stop. It is a response that has been there way longer than you can imagine. The next time you notice yourself reading a symbol without ever consciously reading it, know that you're using a piece of technology your ancestors invented in the dark, by firelight, on a cave wall, tens of thousands of years before anyone thought to call it art.
If this video changed how you look at every warning label and road sign you'll see today, share it with someone who's never thought twice about why symbols work the way they do, with someone who needs to hear that just art is rarely just anything. Like this video if it made you see something as ordinary as a stop sign a little differently today. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. This channel exists to keep asking the questions nobody else bothers to. And drop a comment below. Tell me the last symbol you understood instantly without reading a single word. This channel exists because of people who stay till the end. So thank you, genuinely. See you in the next one.